Today I'm going to walk you through coding a script for AutoCAD using an LLM. So in this case, we're going to be using the AutoLISP scripting language, and we're going to be using Gemini. There are a few different automation tools you can use in AutoCAD, and there are a few different LLMs you could be using. You don't have to use Gemini. I'm just using these two in this example. But the reality is that the tool you use and the LLM that you use to help you write that script aren't really important as long as you know what you want to do. So, whenever we're trying to automate something in AutoCAD or in Revit or in Excel or anywhere else, we need to understand what the inputs are. We need to understand what we want to do with those inputs, and we need to know what the output is. If we don't have those things in a clear understanding in our own head of what those things are, we're not going to be able to tell the LLM what we want, and we're not going to get a script out of that that's going to be useful to us. So we're using, as I said, AutoLISP. And the reason we're using AutoLISP is because it is the oldest scripting language around for AutoCAD. There are lots of examples around to download, and they're just text files. You can always open it up and read it. It's easy to see what's going on. And because of that, there's also a lot of these files that LLMs have been trained on. So 2 years ago, when ChatGPT first came out, it wasn't so great at Lisp programming because it's quite an old programming language. But since then, it's got a lot better. And I'm going to walk you through an example today where we're going to tell the LLM what we want. It's going to give us some code. We're going to paste that into AutoCAD and run it. If it works first time, we'll be really happy. But if it doesn't work first time, then I'll be happy because we'll be able to walk through the ways that you can fix that using the output from AutoCAD to go back to the LLM and say, here's a problem with what you've written. So, a simple tool that I find myself using quite often is a tartan grid. So instead of just having a regular grid where all the lines in the grid are X distance apart, when you're planning as an architect, you sometimes want a tartan grid where you've got wide wide pieces followed by narrow pieces. So like some grids are close together, then far apart, and the next pair is close together. The reason you'd want something like that is you might be working with a structural system, so you might be using load-bearing brick and rooms that can only be a certain size, and you want to work with them like that. Or you might have a planning grid that you want to work with, where you have, for example, in a hospital, passages that need to be a certain width, and then hospital rooms inside those that also need to be a certain size. So we will ask AutoCAD to draw that grid for us instead of us having to manually offset a line by one distance, then by the other distance, and then start copying over those units. So, what is our input? Our input is a line that represents the first line in the grid that we want to offset. The distance A, that will be the distance to the first line, and then the distance B, that will be the distance between the first line and the second line. And then the number of repeats. How many times do we want that big gap and that small gap, or that small gap and that big gap, however you set it up, to repeat before we're finished? What we want the script to do is let us select that line and tell it which side we want to offset, and then offset by distance A, then by distance B, then by distance A, then by distance B, and so on and so forth until it's finished, the number of repeats. So the output we want at the end is a series of offset lines using those patterns. So if you're doing a lot of this kind of planning, this will save you a lot of time. The other thing I want to say is that the demonstration today is in AutoCAD, but obviously there's nothing about this description of the work we're doing that's specific to Revit or AutoCAD or SketchUp or Grasshopper. This general pattern that we're asking for here is something that you could then write a Dynamo script for, or a Python routine to wrap up into Pyruvit, or a Grasshopper script to run in Rhino. The point is, today I'm demonstrating it with one tool, but the same plan, the same algorithm, if you like, can be used with other things. But let's go into Gemini and I will show you how we get from this to a working script. So just to remind ourselves, we're going to tell it that we want to draw the script, and we're going to include all of the things on this list here. And let's see how it goes. So we're going to say, I want to write an AutoLISP script which takes a line and offsets it um, using two distances. Offset A, offset B, and repeats these X number of times to produce a tartan grid. That is the rough description, but it's always good to give a bit more detail. So we're going to say, starting from the base grid line, the first line should be distance A away. The second line should be distance B away from that first line. And the third line should be distance A away from the second line, etc., until X pairs of lines at distance A and distance B have been placed. So what I'm saying there is, when I enter how many repeats I want, I'm not saying I want 5 grid lines. If I say 5 repeats, I'm saying I want 10 grid lines. One close, one far, one close, one far, etc. I've written what I think I want. Something that's really helpful with any of these LLMs is, before you ask it to get going and generate, you say, is there anything I've missed? Do you need any other information? So I'm going to say, please ask me any other questions you need for clarity before you start writing the script. Right, so we've told it what we want to do. We've given a worked example with a bit more detail. And then we've said, please tell me if you need anything to clarify this. We hit enter. I'm going to leave all of the thinking in so that you can see how long this actually takes. But what we're going to do here is, when we get the response, we're going to see what it tells us. Right. So it's given us 4 questions. Okay, the first paragraph, yes, this is a great idea. That's fine. Offset side. Yes, I want to specify the offset side by clicking with my mouse. That's the normal way we specify offsets in AutoCAD. Object types. I would like it to work with lines and polylines. I don't really need it to work with arcs. It's not very common to use curved grid lines. If you do use curved grid lines, you can ask it to do that. So let's just say, I would like to offset lines and polylines. Layers. Should the new tartan lines be created in the same layer as the original line, or would it be more helpful to have them placed on a different layer? I'm going to say, please place new lines on the layer AR grid. If this layer does not exist, please create it and set the color to 8, which is the AutoCAD number for the color gray. Repetition count. Um, yes, just to confirm my understanding, if you enter 3, you would expect a total of 6 new lines. That's right. Yes. Um, repetition count should be for 2 times x lines in total. Okay, and then I've also remembered I don't want it to think of a name. I want to have a name for this. So I'm going to call I'm just going to tell it the script should be called tartan. Let me hit enter. Depending on the day and how many other people are using it and what subscription you've got, this may be faster or slower. But it's going to write the code. Um, the nice thing, I'm not going to go into it now in this video, but what's nice is you are getting a AutoLISP script that you can read and you can look at it for yourself and see if it's something you want to use. If you want to go in here and manually work on things, or if you want to use this as a way to teach yourself AutoLISP, it works. You can see here in gray, these are comments. So all of these things that start with a semicolon are comments. Those are for us to read. AutoCAD doesn't read those. The things in brackets and in colors are the things AutoCAD reads. But we can use this to teach ourselves AutoLISP as well. There's a whole lot of things going on in here. And then down here, it tells us what to do. So it says, copy the code above and paste it into a plain text file. So I'm going to do that. I have got a text file open, which is ready for me. I'm going to copy and paste in here. I'm going to hit save. And then it tells me how to load it into AutoCAD. So I'm going to go into AutoCAD. I'm going to type app load. I'm going to find that file and load it. And then we're going to type tartan at the command line. So we're going to type open AutoCAD. We're going to type app load. You can see I've got my 2 grid lines ready to start testing this. The type app load. There's tartan. I'm going to load it. I'm going to I'll get a little message here, tartan.lsp successfully loaded. So what that means now is that the Lisp file has been loaded as a command. If we type in tartan, it will then run that command as if it was a built-in command in AutoCAD. So it says select a line to offset. Say this one. Pick a point on the side to offset, just to make sure it is going to be on the. I'm going to click a point. Enter the offset distance. Let's say we've got a planning grid for a hospital, and we need passages that are 2 meters wide, and we need uh, rooms in between that are 7 meters wide. So we're going to say 2, 7, and I'm going to say 3 repeats so that we get 2, 7, 2, 7, 2, 7. So 3 repeats. And it looks like it's drawn that, right? If I look at this, I've got what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some dimensions on and see that they are actually drawing the right things. Um, these all look like they're the same distance, so that's fine. And we're just going to check this last one here. Right. So what is actually happening here is that this one is 5 meters and not 7 meters. So can we think about what we think is going on here? What I think is happening is that, and you'll see that the first one is the right distance. This is 7 meters, but this one's only 5 meters. I think this is dimensioning from the wrong line. I think instead of saying 7 meters from this line, it's saying it's 7 meters from that line. Now, what we can do is we can delete these lines and we can run the script again and see what happens and see if we can confirm that that's what we think is happening. So we're going to say tartan. We're going to say this one. We're going to say this side. And I'm going to say 500 and I'm going to say 700 just because then I'm going to be able to see the difference between the 700 it should be, and if it makes the same error, I think it's going to make them shorter. Let's say 4. Right. Now this is interesting. It looks like these are the right distance. Let's have a look. 500, 700, 500, 700, 500, 700. Okay. Now this is a hard kind of error to work out. If it made the same mistake every time, we have an easy thing, easy time. Let's draw it horizontally and see if that is the problem. Offset distance A, let's say 500, let's say 700, let's say 3. Let's draw them correctly. Okay. I'm not unhappy that it's working correctly, but our role in this process is to do the testing. The script has been written by the LLM, and we have to make sure we get it working properly. So I'm going to go back to those original dimensions of 2000 and 7000 and see what happens. Select line to offset, pick a point on the side to offset, 2000, 7000, number of repeats 5, and hit enter. And I have a theory about what might be happening here. So, sorry, let me just go back here. I'll show you what's going on. So here we'll see we've only got 2 sets. And what we actually have, if we look here, is that there's multiple lines. So if I select this line and delete it, there's another line underneath it. So something is not working the way it should, and I have a suspicion about what's going on, which is that AutoCAD is old. If I say AutoCAD's older than me, that's AutoCAD's been around since the late 70s. And there are sometimes weird things that happens when it tries to draw things off screen. So if the thing you're drawing is visible when the screen is visible, it handles it differently from if it was not on screen. So I'm going to zoom out and type the same command again and see if it works properly. And if it does, then we know that that is what the strangeness is about, right? So on this side, it looks like it's dimensioned them properly. Um, Although I just want to go back and satisfy myself about something here. So I said 2000 and 5000 this time around, but you'll see it's drawn them the way I want to. Now I'm going to zoom all the way in on this line and run the same command, but offset it up to the top. And if it's the problem I think it has, then it's going to give us some problems here. So I'm going to say 2000, 5000. Now these are the same command. I'm saying 2000 and 5000 and 3 repeats in one direction and the other direction. They should be the same. The only difference is that I'm zooming in closer this time. And if it gives us an error now, then we know we've zeroed in on what the problem is. So that hasn't done what I've asked it to do. It's put them in a weird place altogether. So now I'm ready to go back to my LLM and say, this is almost working properly. But if I ask it to draw lines that need to be drawn outside the currently visible screen, I get strange results. Doubled lines, the incorrect distance, etc. How are you handling? Okay, right. So my recipe here is I'm describing the problem, right? The second thing is if you have an idea about what the problem might be, you can also suggest that. It helps get things along the right lines and work things out faster. Um, how are you handling offsets that go off screen? Right, you'll see it's thinking here. It's going to give us some thinking. Right, I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to paste it into the same file. I'm going to save. And then we need to reload it back into AutoCAD. AutoCAD doesn't automatically load it. So we go in here, we say tartan. No, we don't say tartan, sorry. We say app load. We load that again. So I'm going to leave us with just one line and one line again so that we can work from that. Right, we say tartan, select this one, pick a point on the side we want to offset distance A, 500, 2000, and let's do 5 repeats. We've still got something strange going on. And it was working for us better the first time around, right? Let's see what we've got. We've still got some doubling up. And it seems to be copying it on both sides. So now the offset lines are randomly being offset on both sides and are also doubling up, i.e. more than one line in the same position. Are you... Let's see what it comes back with. Sometimes it's helpful if you can give it a detailed suggestion of how you would do it. And if it doesn't give us the right answer now, then I'm going to say, please offset the first line by distance A, and the second line from the first line, from the baseline by distance A plus B, and the next one by A plus B plus A, and the third one by A plus B plus A plus B. So instead of offsetting them from each other, I'm going to say, please offset everything from the first line. Okay. Right, so it's telling us that it was using the original point that we clicked on when we chose the side we want to offset, and then using that as the offset direction. And then once it went past that line, it would go backwards, which is a bit of a silly mistake. So let's run this again. Let's see if this code does what we need it to. That might even have been the problem we had right from the start, actually. We go back in here, we load it in again, load, tartan, load, close. Let's say tartan, this line, click a point on the side to offset, distance A, 2000, distance B, 7000, 3 repeats. And that looks like it's giving us what we need. If I read this correctly, it looks like they're the right distance. And if I understand the problem that it's pointed out, I think we should be fine even if we've got something off screen now that it's worked it out. So let's type tartan. Let's select this line over here, 2000, 7000, and I'm going to say 8 repeats because I know that will take us far off the top of the screen. And if it was going to give us the errors we've seen before, we'd see it in this case. So let's see. And there we go. It looks like it's working the way we want it to. I would normally spend a lot of time playing with different distances and different conditions just to see that it works, but that's not very exciting, and you're not going to learn a lot by watching me do that, so I'm not going to do that. But one thing I am going to do, though, the last thing I'm going to ask it to fix is that it's placing them in layer 0. And it has actually created the grid layer I asked it to put everything in. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, one more thing. The newly offset lines are not in the right layer. Please move them into the layer AR grid once they are created. Okay. I'm saying it that way because I don't want it to try and use a system variable or some other strange way of, I don't want it to do this. Um, the offset layer system variable. I don't like using system variables for this kind of thing. So I'm just going to say my version of AutoCAD does not have this variable. Um, Please rather move each line into the AR grid layer as soon as it is created. The point is, I don't like to use scripts that interfere with system variables if we can avoid it. It's just a dangerous behavior and a bad habit to get into. And I also don't believe that that system variable exists. Um, Sometimes, unfortunately, this is the thing with LLMs is that they will hallucinate um, things that aren't there and try and run in that way. So this is giving us a version that doesn't do that, which is what I asked for. So hopefully this gives you an idea. Um, Let me just copy this in and show you that it's working. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how you as an architect can start becoming a little bit more of a programmer. And it's not about understanding how the script, what every line of the script does. It's about you having a good idea of what your intention is and what you want to do, and of being able to tell the computer, just like we need to be able to interpret what our client asks us for, and it's harder to do that if the client doesn't know what they want. It's the same here. We can get the computer to do things for us, but we need to learn to think that way. um, I will post some links in the comments under this that include the script that we've written here, as well as an invitation to the CPD course that I'm running on automation in Revit and AutoCAD, if you want to learn a bit more about how you can do these things. So just to show you that it has worked, I've loaded the new script. I'm going to type tartan. I'm going to click on this line. I'm going to click over here. I'm going to say offset distance A is 500, 2 is 2000. Give me 8 of those. And you'll see now it's copying them into the right layer. It's moved them into the gray layer. So I am happy now that this is doing everything I wanted it to when we went right at the start here. Um, Input a line to offset the distance A and B and the number of repeats, offset them until they're all done, and move them into the correct layer. We're happy. Great. So check the comments for the link for my course and also for the AutoCAD script that you can download if this is something that you think would be useful to you.